Hello and welcome everyone to today's episode of IntueriTalk. Today we are diving into a topic that feels more urgent than ever, especially in a world that's changing rapidly. That is building transformational teams and developing future-ready leaders. Whether you are a business leader, a manager, or someone who's passionate about organizational development, you've probably noticed that the way we work, lead, and connect with each other has been reshaped by forces we couldn't have imagined a few years ago. The current era, marked by the rise of generative AI, rapid digitalization, hybrid workplaces, and evolving geopolitical dynamics, is presenting both new opportunities and significant challenges. Leaders today are dealing with an influx of information, a demand for faster decision making, and a generational shift in the workforce, with Gen Z bringing fresh expectations and values into the workplace. There's also a heightened focus on sustainability and responsible business practices, driven by a generation that's more conscious about purpose and impact than ever before. In this landscape, the traditional definition of leadership is evolving. While today's leaders face many shortages, one thing is in abundance: the complexity. It's no longer just about guiding a team towards goals, it's about aligning organizational purpose with the individual values of a diverse workforce. How do we bridge the gap between the vision companies have and the everyday practices that brings this vision to life? I'm thrilled to have two distinguished guests with us today who have been at the forefront of helping organizations navigate the complex terrain. First, we have Yael Leinman. Yael has been at the forefront of shaping talent and cultural strategies for high impact organizations. She's an EMCC certified team coach and positive intelligence coach. She's a seasoned mental health professional with over 2 decades of experience working with the NHS. Her work has shown that the real change is about more than just strategies on paper. It's about aligning people, purpose, and practices in a way that resonates deeply within the organization. Welcome, Yael. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for that extensive introduction, Aman. Good to be here.
Thank you. Joining us as well, we have Indranil Das, a seasoned business leader with 30 years of experience in consulting, IT, and telecom industries. Indranil has held executive roles at global giants like PwC, IBM, and Ericsson, where he had led multicultural teams across India, the US, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. As the founder of Leaderion, Indranil is dedicated to empowering the next generation of leaders through uniquely designed coaching programs. Welcome, Indranil. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Aman. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So today's discussion isn't just about identifying what's wrong in our current approach to leadership and culture. It's about understanding what it takes to get it right. So let's dive right into it. So Yael, Indranil, let's start with the big picture, right? We are in the time of extraordinary change across industries, driven by rapid digitalization, generative AI, shifting geopolitical landscapes, and increasing pressure on businesses to adopt sustainable practices. These forces are fundamentally reshaping how companies operate, how they build cultures, and how they connect with their people. From your perspectives, what are the most significant changes you've seen in how organizations are adapting to this new reality? And what do you think are the key challenges and opportunities they face today compared to just a few years ago?
So I think, thank you, Aman. I think you've already alluded to these are complex times and organizations are having to work with very complex challenges and they change very rapidly. So what I know from organizations world is that by the time we align to what is needed, you know, the population is already kind of moved on. So there's something about always trying to catch your own tail, you know, there's something about that. And, you know, the larger an organization is, the longer the longer it takes to make changes. You know, imagine like a really large yacht, you know, it takes much longer to move even one angle compared to a little boat. So, you know, I've been thinking about this question and I was thinking about what some of these challenges are. And, there are quite a few of those, but some of those, some of the top ones, I think, and again, it's not an exhaustive list, is really aligning the corporate purposes with societal expectations. We live in a dynamic world. Things are changing fast. People are more aware of what's happening around the world in different regions, and there's an expectation that organizations have their hand on that, and they move forward with that quickly. You also mentioned the need to integrate digital transformation, and that requires organizations today to bring it into their core functions. So it's something that happens a day to day. It's not just like a project over here, like once upon a time, oh, we'll do the automated emails over here. Now it has to be in day-to-day practice in everything that we do, and we can't escape that. And then, of course, that requires organizations to adopt new skill sets and new ways of working and new workforce structures. It's not just at a strategic level, but it's also operational. And that means that we need Gen Z and Gen Alpha who can bring that new knowledge that those of us dinosaurs over here, taking longer to learn and operate. So there's some kind of a mixture of what we know and our wisdom from how things used to be and may or may not work anymore, and then the new wisdom with the new generation. And I don't know, Indranil, I'd love to hear from you as well.
I really love what you said, that we are the dinosaurs. And then
I'm just naming it right off the bat.
And that reminds me of one thing I was reading somewhere. It seems like a latest technology trend. Everyone is talking about the AI, generative AI, the impact of that. And guess what? Only 10% to 15% of the organization today are using Gen AI in their business process or technology or their digital stack. On the other hand, the employees and particularly the Gen Z and Gen Alphas, they are just learning. They are not waiting for the organization to decide what to do. They are learning and they are actually using it already, right? So I think that's what we are going to see more and more in terms of the complexity and challenge, right? And when you said the one thing is available in abundance is complexity. I love that. I would just add another thing is also the opportunity now with that. So this new technology, this rapid pace, first it happened with the COVID, digital transformation, digitization, made significant progress during COVID, right? And it became, it kind of got ingrained in our ways of working, right? And now with the Gen AI, that's another shift happening. And the shift is happening very rapid. Employees are learning faster. Organization almost like they're feeling like catching up many times. And then you add to this the latest thing happening around geopolitical tensions, ultranationalism, the focus on sustainability, because this generation now is going to be impacted. Look what is happening around the world. This generation is going to be impacted with the climate change much more than ever. So all this together, significant complexity, significant opportunity, and how we take it forward from there.
Thank you, both of you. So I just like to say, like, I was born in 1997, right? So the first year of Gen Z. And, I believe the maximum learnings I've got is by spending time with more dinosaurs.
We've got some time today then. And I have to say, and vice versa. We have a lot to learn from you guys. So, I think it goes back to what we said at the beginning about how we want to be here together today. And it's the openness and curiosity. We both have things that we can share with each other because we have different kind of wisdoms in different parts of our brain and experience. And we can also learn from each other, so it goes both ways. It's a two-way street.
Absolutely. So both of you have talked about how Gen Z is coming into the picture, both in terms of societal impact as well as within the organization, right? And we've seen this rapid boom. There's around 25% of the workforce that belongs to this generation, belongs to this evolving generation. And they want more than just a paycheck. right? They are looking for meaning and alignment with their own beliefs. So from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges leaders face meeting the expectations of these new generations while navigating the complex dynamic?
Mm. I think this is such an important question in our conversation today, and just picking up on the where Indranil kind of was going to the previous question, climate concerns. So we've already touched on the fact that these generations that grow up in a world where there's so many changes and they are more conscious about what's going on, whether it's climate concerns, social change, and it's really important for them. And you can say, Aman, if you think that's correct, because you, as you said, you're in that generation, that having their values and priorities are really important, that they're aligned with their organizational values. Otherwise it just there's no alignment, and that sounds really, really important for these generations. So from where I come from, I'm a mental health clinician. That's like in my bones. I can't help that. I'm a psychologist. What I know that with all of these changes and with all the things that are really important is that at the same time, these generations are expected to be experiencing the most mental health issues because of the challenges, because of the complexity. So the expectation from this generation on leaders and organizations is to take good care of their mental health and emotional well-being. And one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that if we don't look after our own mental health and emotional well-being, then we're no good to anybody. So leaders and organizations have a real responsibility, something that have never been there before. Pre-corona, nobody talked about it, right? Actually, we as leaders, we as organizations, how do we take good care of our employees' emotional well-being and mental health? And not because it's like a nanny state and we're responsible for that. But actually, if you didn't want to think like that, I mean, it is your responsibility, but if you didn't want to think like that, actually it's to help your own organization. Because if you look after your staff will then look after your organization. So I think that's a big challenge, because I think once upon a time, if people had mental health issues, there was a stigma, and the stigma is still very much there. But it was like, okay, so you take some sickness time and you go off and you fix yourself and then you come back to work. And that's not how it works anymore. Organizations have got to have mental health policies in place. They've got to bring in emotional well-being support. It's got to be part of, again, we talked about digitalisation being part of the day-to-day core function. It's the same here. Some organizations have gyms in place, they have therapists and counselors or coaches in place, all that kind of stuff that really will support the staff emotional well-being and mental health. So I think that's one of the challenges, and organizations recognize that more and more, that they're part of the solution to that, what is going to become a massive boom for these generations. Sorry, I'm talking a lot about that because I'm so passionate about this topic. I'm going to go quiet now so that Indranil can share his views as well.
No, it's a very, it's a very important thing you touched upon, Yael, for sure. Because end of the day, you have to feel well to serve others, right? That's what you are saying. Absolutely. I want to bring and add to that another thing here. Look, during COVID, what has also happened, and since then, this remote working, hybrid working has become the norm. And that creates a new kind of challenges in the workplace, right? And we already see some of the organizations are almost like mandating people to come back to the office now, to the workplace. Some are mandating you have to be 5 days in office, some saying 3 days, some saying 2 days, some saying very few now saying, okay, you don't have to come to office. But this hybrid working, whatever the mandate or no mandate is going to be there, is going to be a permanent setup. Let's put it this way. Because the new generation would like to have that flexibility of not commuting 2 hours in a traffic and doing the work what matters to them, right? At the same time, then you have to build the team, whether you are in the workplace or otherwise, you have to build the team. And building the team is not going to happen just by mandating people to come to the workplace. It has to happen with a much more deeper connection in the team. And I believe that's where the organization will have to focus more, how to create that purpose at work, how to create that bonding, trust in the workplace, how to create a stronger team where you are not together every day. You are not having meals every now and then and breaking breads together. That may not happen always. How do you develop a deeper connection? How do you develop the belongingness and connectedness in the team? I think that would be one of the biggest challenge, I would say.
Mm. And if I can just build on that quickly, Indranil, because I completely agree. And as we said, these are not the only challenges. There are more, of course. But what you're touching on is really important about building trust, especially in the era of skepticism. Man, you know better than me, but I feel that these Generation Z and Alpha are a lot more skeptical. They don't believe authority very easily. They know that there are other truths out there. And so there's something about building a trust. And that really goes in what you were saying, Indranil, just there. It's the relationships, it's the creating the connections that are built on trust in the organization. And that changes how organizations used to work traditionally. The very hierarchical kind of structure. It's disappearing.
Fair point. So just to kind of build on that, right? We've understood that there's been so many changes that are rapidly evolving. The organizations need to change the way they are functioning, they are structured, and things like that. And despite this, need for transformation, we are seeing that, our research shows that there's nearly 70% of transformations that fail. And this is a very staggering number, and it often comes down to things that you have just mentioned, right? Building trust, building culture, and execution. So, why do you think it is so difficult for the organizations to make these transformations truly stick? And what factors do you think are most critical in ensuring successful and lasting change?
Yeah, I think you mentioned about 70% of the transformation fail, Aman.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to add to that, it's nothing new. That has been the case in my 3 decades of experience working in the industry, the big global players, working with my clients, having represented our organization in the client boardroom. I can tell you 70% and even more than the transformation fail. And the primary reason for this one is that the lack of change management, in other words, the change resistance, meaning that you do not have the culture for that change or the transformation. That's number one. Because no matter how beautiful is your strategy is, if you do not have the right execution plan, it will fail. So, and you cannot have the right execution if you do not have the right culture and mindset. And that's why there's a cliche, right? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that's one of the foundational or one of the main reasons of failing transformation. And second is the leadership. It's not only that you have to have that execution plan, you have to have the leaders who kind of wears that vision, that mission, and take that mission and go and execute, right? Just think about that. You have a Formula One car. Just think about it this way. And the car may be zazzy, looking outside, very nice. But if you do not have the right engine, which is the culture, and if you do not have the right driver, which is the leader, your car is not going to win the race. So both culture and the leadership is the foundation of a successful transformation. And many times the organizations are not focusing on those, and that's why it's failing. And as I said, it's nothing new. It has been happening since ages. There is a 70% plus transformations are failing because of that.
I couldn't agree more, Indranil. And if that's okay, it's kind of zooming in on the leadership. So completely agree with the culture. And by the way, organizational culture cannot transform and change overnight. it takes time, which is why Indranil and I and system coaches, we believe that any piece of work like that does require, this is a mid to long term piece of work. This is not like what we see often, which organizations invite for like a one day. Everybody get excited, everybody takes in the new information, and guess what? They go back to the offices, and within a week, they go back to default behaviors, because guess what? We are human, and we will always go to our default behavior. So to create organizational change in terms of culture, that's a transformational piece of work. It doesn't happen overnight. But the bit that I really wanted to touch on is actually the leadership, what Indranil was saying there, because to change an organizational culture, leaders need to start looking within first. And that's a really scary thing to do. What? Do you mean I'm not a good leader? Do you mean that I need to change my style? I mean, that's really scary stuff. And two of the things that we are all, as humans, are most scared of is being judged and being rejected. So if I'm going to start changing the way that I lead, if I'm going to show some more vulnerability, which is one of the aspects that shows true good leadership, and authenticity, i.e., really showing my faults when I go wrong, when I make mistakes, that can be really scary for some people, especially leaders, especially from the old hierarchical structure. So this is a really big piece of work for leaders to work on it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to own them. That can really freak people out. And then knowing that some team members are not going to like the changes. We also have a way in systems where we like to keep the status quo. We like to keep things as they are because it keeps us safe. The norms keep us safe. So that's why another reason why it's very difficult for organizations to keep the changes, because there's always going to be people that will push back to take things back to how they were. And that's a very natural process. That's very normal. And we need to work with that. We need to understand that that's fine. And we just need to work with it rather than try and fight it.
This point just reminded me of an article that I had read recently that said a good leader is supposed to be like Google Maps. When you make a wrong turn, it does not say that you have made the wrong turn, but it reroutes itself and shows you the new direction to reach the goal. So
that's
that
powerful.
made a lot of
Interesting.
sense.
That's powerful. I'll use that analogy going forward. Thank you, Aman.
Yeah, no problem. So we talked about two major challenges, right? One, the culture, the resistance to change, and second, the leadership. We'll get into it one by one. Let's talk about the first part now. So Yael, in one of your podcasts, I remember you had mentioned that during your experience with systems coaching, you have often, came across situations where the individuals within the system have different ideologies, different thought processes, different ways of action, and thus the resistance to change. And you also talked about how setting a clear purpose or a clear goal can help align these differences and guide the team towards a set objective. In your experience, does setting up this clear North Star or a unifying purpose effectively help drive this kind of alignment? And what are the other ways that you've seen work well in fostering a culture that supports successful transformation?
So I'll just give my whatever I could chip into that. Organizations are all different from one another, but they all have a similar kind of way of operating in terms of phases of group development. And I'll get into that a bit later, perhaps, if we have the time. But I want to make a really big distinction between what is a group that is working together and a team, because they are not the same things. A group is composed of people who are striving to create a shared view of goals and develop an efficient and effective organizational structure where they can accomplish that goal. Okay, that's a group of people that are working together. And some groups continue to work as groups of people, and some groups actually have the luxury to become a team. Okay, so not all groups are a team. And a group becomes a team when the shared goals have been established and they have effective methods to accomplish these goals, and they put them in place. And even with that, a team isn't necessarily a high functioning team or a high performing team, because a high performing team reaches that level of effectiveness and productivity and can sustain this, so the system doesn't only just survive, it also develops and transforms. So I just want to make those distinctions, because it sounds like, you know, we all go around and think like we're all working as part of the team. And actually the truth is that most groups of people are just groups of people that work together. They're not actually teams. So when we're thinking about the North Star, about unifying purpose and working effectively, what I know in how organizations are starting to work now, the brave and courageous ones, is they think about mutual accountability. You know, the leaders can't be everywhere all of the time. And people are feeling that they are in an environment where they can challenge each other, they can ask questions, they can push the status quo, but they are also, all of them together, are creating the organizational vision and purpose, you know, so they're co-creating that together, so they can feel responsible for that, they have an ownership for that, and they can also be accountable for that. It's not something that came from the top and they've been told, well, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. So that mutual accountability and shared vision and purpose that has been co-created with the team and the leadership team, you know, creates something new and provides that different way of how people feel that they can belong and are part of the organization as a whole. And I don't know if, Indranil, you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, one thing you said, the team of people working together, like a working group vis-a-vis a team, right? And there is a distinction, right? If you look at a team, not only is the shared purpose, shared objective that they're developing together, there is also a relationship. So some time back, I was talking to someone, and that person was telling me the people are the greatest or biggest asset for the team. And then we ended up discussing, it's not just the people, it's the relationship between the people in the team. That's the biggest asset for the team. And that relationship is like a system, as you were saying, it's like a thriving, living, it's intelligent, it's evolving. And that's how you create a common bond, connection, and purpose. Some time back, I was approached by one of the leaders, and she was having teams in China, Germany, India. It's a global team, multicultural team. And they were not able to have that connection within the team. Somehow the team is performing, but not to the extent they would like to be a great or very high performing team, right? And I was approached, and then I did a very simple exercise with that team. I asked them to get into a group of 3 in a Zoom or a Teams call, and did a breakout. And I said, okay, you introduce yourselves without your designations and starting from your childhood, and let everyone feel like they're here sharing their some of the beliefs, who they are, their childhood stories, and do it for just 4 or 5 minutes each, and tell something about yourself, but not your designation, what you do here. So that was done for 15-20 minutes. They came back from that breakout, and there was a complete different mood in the forum. And they said, and to quote them, that in our corporate professional life, we have this facade of professionalism sometimes. We don't let others to see how we are individually, and we don't connect. And this session, just 15-20 minutes, we could connect with each other at a different level. And that started creating the trust and bonding in the team. And then we worked together as a team. I led them through the journey of creating a common purpose, objective, and vision. And that entire journey over the 6 months was transformative for the team. And their level of trust and connectedness went from 31% to 83% after 6 months. So this kind of having a common purpose, connection, trust, and the relationship, that's the currency, right? Trust and relationship is the currency of the high performing team. That is so important. And that's what enables the cultural transformation. Then you can do anything with that team.
Thanks for that story, Indranil. I'll just so I follow football a bit, right? And I'm a Manchester United fan, and
You're not a good time to be a fan of Manchester
yeah. So
United.
that's what I was trying to tell, right? I have kind of seen how different it is when it is just a group of people working together and when it is a team working together, and how much impact it creates on the goal they're working towards.
Yeah, but it's interesting. You are bringing an analogy from sports. That's fantastic. And it's not Manchester United. You see teams like you go to like Real Madrid or PSG or many other teams, right? Barcelona, all the big teams. Sometimes they perform very well. Sometimes they have the biggest of the stars. It's a star-studded squad, and they're performing very poorly. So you can have individual superstars in the team. But in a team game, in sports team game, that relationship, trust, connection, that is so important, right? I think that's great, Amon, you're bringing that sports analogy. And you see it in many of these, whether it's soccer or cricket or any other team sports you take. It's not the individual superstars who win the game. It's actually the team working together and having that understanding, trust, and relationship, winning the game and the championship.
Correct. And this helps us go to the next point, that building this team together, making them work together, essentially depends a lot on having a good leader, right? My leadership experiences, if I can even call them leadership experiences, has just been leading a couple of committees in college or leading a team of 4 members in my previous organization. But what you had mentioned earlier, Yael, that to develop a leader, it starts with trying to understand themselves. So it got me thinking about the different stages in which a leadership or a leader is developed, starting off with understanding themselves, leading themselves, moving to leading others, and then going on to leading the organization. So in your experience, how crucial it is for leaders to develop across these stages? And how does this phased approach help build the resilience and adaptability needed to navigate today's complex environment?
Very big question, very big question. And I just want to make a point, because I think that, we're covering today a lot of topics, and I think that every single one of them is extremely important and complex. And I just want to say that even though Indranil and I'm sorry, Indranil, I'm saying this in your name as well, but I feel that it's good to note that although we're giving our answers, there's a lot more depth into those. It's not, it sounds like we just, we have the answers and this is how it works, and you do this, and that, and then everything is fine and dandy. But actually, these are navigating very complex topics and issues, because essentially, we work with people, with humans, and we are nothing but simple, every single one of us is more complex than all of the computers put in the world together. And some of the research doesn't even have all the information about what happens in our human brain. So I really want to make a point that we don't oversimplify the complexity of this, even if we're giving what seems to be very straight answers. I think they're nothing but straight. But to your question, one of the frameworks that I work with is something called system-centered training, and you've heard me talk about that when you listened to my previous podcast with the Awaken Coaching Institute. I was talking about it quite a lot. It's a theory developed by a lady called Ivona Gazarian, and she started to work in a mental health in a mental illness kind of institution back in the days, and was really observant about what happens in groups, of patients. And she developed this theory because she observed that there are similar processes that happens in groups, they go through what she calls phases of group development. And she saw that it doesn't matter which group she observed, they all went through the same stages. And we might have time for me to talk about it a little bit more later, but in the specific part that you were talking about, moving from the person, we talk about the inner person, the part of us that is in a survival mode, that isn't open to change, that is all about protecting ourselves, which is very human and crucial. And then there's a part of us where we can become more curious about what's happening in the world around us, and we need to feel very safe to be able to do that. And from that place, we can connect with what we call the interperson, the part when we relate to other people around us. So for example, my system with Indranil is a two people system. And if I can be curious about what Indranil has to say, and Indranil is curious about what I have to say, even if we disagree, then we can create that interperson connectivity. And the third level is what we call the system as a whole, where we bring it to kind of the complete outside world around us. And sometimes as leaders, we might close the boundary because we feel unsafe. We feel that we are being attacked, rightly or wrongly. That's our experience. And we close the boundary, and therefore we become very rigid. You know, we go into fight, flight, or freeze mode, the survival defense mechanisms. And so, you know, that interaction between going into our survival mode and being able to be open is what helps us to create the development of the system as a whole, the interconnectivity, what Indranil was sharing about earlier, all the soft skills around building trust, communication, leadership, teamwork, you know, creativity, you know, all the things that we need to happen in the day-to-day in every single interaction for the system to develop and transform. I'm sorry, it was a lot of words, but Indranil, do you have anything that you want to add
No,
to
I
that?
think you covered it very well, Yael. I just want to say one more thing here. Normally, you talked about stages of leadership. I don't see it as stages of leadership, Aman. Like, it's not like a leading self, then you go to leading others, and then you go to leading organizations of tomorrow. It's nothing like that. It's like to be a leader, you need to have all the proficiencies, capabilities as a leader. What we have seen traditionally, there's a lot of focus on how you communicate, how you do a right kind of strategy, vision, execution, but not so much on who you are as a leader, what impact you want to create. So that self-leadership often gets neglected. And a person, and I firmly believe in this, a person who cannot lead herself or himself cannot lead others. That self-leadership is so important. But it's not a stages. You need to have that self-leadership. You need to know who you are, what impact you want to create as a leader, what is your personal brand, and from there you go from that strength to lead others and lead the organization.
Great point, great point. And just to build on this leadership concept itself, so we are understanding that leadership is really important, to bring about transformations in an organization. Research even shows that organizations with good leadership and cohesive culture are about, 2 to 3 times as likely to have a successful business transformation. So it's not just about today's leaders. For organizations, it becomes more about preparing current talent to become future leaders. And Indranil, I remember in one of your videos, you had spoken about your dream of creating a positive chain reaction by empowering the next generation of leaders through a leadership academy. So, from your perspective, what are the key elements in building a sustainable leadership pipeline? And how can organizations ensure that they are effectively developing leaders who can adapt and thrive in this evolving landscape?
Thank you, Aman. I think it's a very important question. And thanks for watching that video and remembering that what I mentioned about the leadership pipeline. And it comes from a deep belief that I have. What I have seen with my 3 decades of industry experience, there's a lot of focus on the top leadership now with the executive team. They're being sent to top management institutes, and there is nothing wrong in it, and it's fantastic that's being done. But I have not seen that much focus at a middle and entry level management or leadership. And if you think about it, one of the most crucial part of the organization's journey to have a very, very strong set of middle managers, because the middle managers to the managers is the bridge between the executive team and the team down below, and vice versa. Many of the organizations today are suffering because of lack of quality middle management, and we should not blame the middle managers here. The middle managers, in their own way, they are trying to do their best. However, historically, what has happened, people who have performed well for the first 3-4 years as an individual contributor, they have been promoted to be a manager, whether they want to be a manager or not, whether they want to lead a team or not, they have been promoted to a manager as if that's the only career path without any grooming. And then they figured out their way, they become middle managers, and then they are still trying to find their feet. So it's very important not to think like a management just as a career option, not to think management that people who are able to perform individually well, they can be a good manager or leader. Not necessarily, may not want to. So we need to take leadership and manager as a conscious choice and enable and empower whoever wants to be a manager and leader in a proper way. And that's why the next generation leadership comes. We really have to start early. We have to groom them in the right way and continue to enable and empower them. Having the executive level program is too far, too few, and very late in the game. And that's not going to solve the today's challenge of having the weak management team in many cases. So that's why it's important, Ram.
Thank you, Indranil. So let's get into how we build this leadership and how we build this culture within organizations, right? So both of you have had deep experience and expertise in leadership and cultural transformations, and we've seen that it is very important in this day and age. Given the variety of leadership and cultural programs that are available, what do you believe makes your approach truly distinct?
So we mentioned earlier that Indranil and I met on a team coaching course called Organizational Relationship System Coaching. And we were at different stages of going through the course and so on, the certification of it. And where its approach is very unique and different from anything that I've seen is that it talks about what we refer to as the third entity, third perspective. And it touches very closely to what Indranil was just saying a moment ago, which is it's not about the blame, it's not about the individual, right? It's not the middle manager who's doing the wrong thing. Actually, it's a systemic view. And going back to the metaphor, the analogy of your Man United and all your Madrid Real or whatever you call it, right? I'm not a football fan, so I don't know much about that, but I do know about music. And one of the analogies that we give in music is imagining the Beatles, the band, which I think most of us know, if not all of us, even you, a man in your Gen Z or Gen Alpha life. And when we think about the Beatles and we think about system work, we look at there are 4 individuals there. You know, there's Paul McCartney, John Lennon, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison. And they are the individuals within the band. But the Beatles, the music that they create, that's the third entity. It's the music that we hear, that they produce. It's the what you smell when you come into a kitchen, you know, the flavors and the senses that take you, the perfume that you can smell. So the difference in our approach is that in a very challenging way, we're not working with the individuals. We're working with what happens between them, the stuff that we don't see. So we often ask questions like, so when people do this kind of stuff in your team meeting, for example, what is the impact that you notice? You know, what is the difference? And you'll find that sometimes people don't have the words, but they know that it feels a bit icky. You know, they know that there's a team meeting and they really don't want to go because somebody always gets kind of shot down or somebody always gets criticized. So we will never we don't work with the individual using that approach. We always look at the system as a whole. And we work with 5 principles in ORSC, one of them being every member of the relationship system is a voice for the system of a whole. That's one of 5 principles. So it's the systemic view that we take. It's not about you or her, you know, it's about what's happening to all of us in here. And once I have something that I experience and feel in an organization or a team, I might be the person experiencing it, but it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to all of us in that system. And that's quite a different take to system coaching, to team coaching. Indranil, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I want to add another perspective. So one is that, as you said, the system team is a systemic approach. System is intelligent, system is evolving, right? And relationship is evolving. The other thing, the differentiator or difference is that it's not like we do it for a couple of days and then that's it, right? So it's a transformation over a period of 6 to 8 months. It's like if you're going to a gym to build your muscle, you cannot have a 8-hour sessions 2 days subsequent or continuously. You do it for maybe 1 hour and then continue to build on that over a period of time, 6 months. You go to the gym, then you build your muscle. So our programs is more of a solution-centric approach, outcome-driven approach, be it the team coaching or the leadership development. We do it over a period of 6 to 8 months to have that experiential learning for the participants to go through the journey, through the transformation. And it's a true transformation, then it sticks, rather than going to a program for 2 days and then you forget about it, right? A few days back, I was meeting someone and that person said, oh, I am so pleased that my organization sent me to this top management institute for 3 days, lovely facilities, great professors, great learning. And then I said, okay, great. So you had a great experience. Absolutely. I had a great experience. And then I asked the person, what happened after that? And he said, look, we are supposed to follow up on something, but we come back to work and then what happens. So work takes over. That's not the transformation you want. You want a transformation, be it the leadership or the team, where it sticks. You need to go through a journey, not going to a gym for 2 days. You have to build your muscle properly through experiential learning, development, and self-realization as a team or individual over a period of time. And that's what we enable.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think, both of these approaches that you've just mentioned, really kind of bring me that feeling that this is something that would allow the people who are participating in this to get to the goal that they are at. At this point in my career, I feel that it is a really good way of learning and improving yourself to be where you finally want to be. And you've had years of experience in dealing with teams, dealing with individuals. And when organizations invest in these changes or invest in these areas, what practical lessons or unexpected insights have you seen emerge? And how do you feel that the investments of these organizations help them in navigating today's complex nature and differentiating themselves in the competitive landscape?
I can start with a challenge, and this from a team transformation, because we earlier talked about the transformation fails because of the culture and the leadership. We talked a lot about that. One of the thing, the challenge, big challenge, and I think Yael talked about it, is the leaders who are in the forefront of the transformation. Sometimes the leaders themselves, without understanding, they are the biggest roadblock of any change, transformation, or next generation leadership development. I'm not saying it in a negative way. It's a blind spot. It's a blind spot. But very often that blind spot is not well understood by the leader herself or himself. And that's one of the biggest challenges. To sometimes as a consulting organization or as a leadership solution advisory organization, you have to actually deal with the leaders and make sure they understand. You need to be a trusted advisor, and sometimes the trusted advisors are the one who can hold the mirror in front of the leaders without any judgment, and then the change starts happening.
Yeah. And I can give a personal example, Indranil, because back in the day when I was managing and triple size the mental health service in where I work geographically, I was a middle manager, you know, and I had a growing team underneath me, and I had commissioners above me, and the pressures came from both sides. And I did all my best, you know, being a really, really good leader to protect my staff, you know, to make sure that, you know, I filter so that nothing goes down, so that they can just do the work, you know, and focus on the work. And that was really important to me. And I felt like I was a really good leader. And I think I was. I don't think I wasn't a good leader. But there was an unintended consequences that happened that I didn't realize. And it created a bit of distance between me and the staff, because I was trying to protect them so much that I was taking all of the pressures, I was taking all of the stress, and I didn't want to pass it on. And so what happened was that, you know, people thought that I was a little bit distant, I was a bit too far away. And over time, I realized that actually it's okay to share some of the challenges, of course, not as a way of adding pressure onto them, but kind of almost showing the human side of me, right? And that was a relearning. You know, here I was thinking I'm a very good leader, and I still believe I was, okay, but I had a blind spot, exactly what Indranil was talking about. You know, in my blind spot, I was almost that perfect leader that doesn't show the level of weakness, you know, and vulnerability, that actually it was really tough. You know, commissioners were biting my neck every single day, and I wasn't going to show it to my staff, right? So there was a big learning in that for me. And I just want to add to the second part of your question around why invest in this work. And when I think about it, it's just fascinating. Again, touching on what Indranil was saying, at the beginning of the conversation, we started to talk about the challenges that organizations and leaders face in the face of a growing workforce from Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And we mentioned a little bit about what's important for these generations, which I think, Amanda, you agree on. And that's transparency, you know, values, authenticity, inclusivity, diversity, all that kind of stuff. And of course, looking after the mental health. And so it might be a really scary piece of work for organizations to kind of, you know, open up something like that. And it feels like transformation, you know, 8 to 12 months piece of work. That's a big ship to turn. You know, it feels big and it feels heavy. But actually, when you think about people leaving, you know, when they say people leave, they don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad managers, right? And when you think about the growing sort of finances around recruitment, retraining new people, grievances, complaints, all the HR issues that go alongside all of these challenges, you know, sickness, absenteeism, you know, all that kind of stuff. When you pull it all together, you know, in numbers, in finances. And then you think about the investment of having system coaches coming in to help with the culture, to have everybody have shared vision, norms and purpose and all the rest of it. Actually, put it, you know, one against each other. It's a no-brainer. You know, the cost to all of the HR issues is far greater. Recruitment and training is far greater than investing in your organization and having a really good reputation. You know, this is a really good organization. It's really investing in their people. I want to work there. So you're creating a really positive reputation for the organization, which is an extra bonus really for that. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your points. I believe, you know, this conversation has had so many key takeaways, and it lays a nice foundation for people to understand that there is so much more to learn and observe, both as organizations and individuals. So before we wrap up and get to the conclusion, I'd love to, you know, touch upon the association of Leaderion with Intueri. It's clear that both firms share a strong commitment to empowering leaders and fostering cultural transformation. From your perspective, why is it important for a management consulting firm like Intueri to integrate these kinds of leadership and culture programs in their offerings? And how does combining strategic consulting with specialized leadership development enhance the downstream impact for clients? And where do you see the most significant value for organization?
A great question, Aman. First of all, I have a great respect for Intueri as an organization and the work you are doing, enabling, empowering the clients, taking them through a transformation journey. And it's not easy, right? Given what's going on with geopolitics, with technology and change in technology and the pace of change and the new generation or next generation coming to work, all the climate change, sustainability, just there's a lot going on. And you are actually leading your clients through that journey. And many times what happens that you lead the client through the journey, you take them and you get to the boardroom saying that this is the kind of strategy transformation you need to go through. Great. And I'm sure many times the board will just take a pause and say, okay, this sounds great, but can we execute this? Do we have the organization, the right kind of mindset culture to execute this? Do we have the leadership who has been kind of entrenched in a different way? Can they rewire? Can the organization rewire? Can the culture rewire to that extent that it needs to be successful in this transformation? And that's why Leaderion comes in, to bring that aspect, how to make sure you have the right culture, mindset, you have the right leadership, not only now, even for the future, to take this transformation and continue with the transformation, because transformation is just not going to happen once, right? You need to continue to transform, evolve to be successful in the business. So that's why the Leaderion comes. And with our experience and combined experience, we bring that view across the globe. Right, you see, Yael is there, I am there, and there are many other partners we work with who bring that expertise to enable and empower that change in culture, mindset, transformation, and the leadership. And more importantly, bringing that team and systemic coaching approach in that overall. So it's just not a one time, it sticks. Maybe Yael, you want to add?
You know, going back to it's a process, it's a journey. And it's not an overnight sensation. I always say that it takes time and it requires courage. You know, what I've seen is that, you know, for leaders to acknowledge that something needs to change and that they will do something about it, it takes a lot of courage, actually. And I don't think we can underestimate that. And I think that's why a lot of organizations don't do this work, because it's almost like exposing yourself. It's almost like going naked. And in the face of, again, judgment, that can be tough. And that could be for the individual, but again, on a systemic level, because maybe you're going naked in front of like a global industry, you know, out there. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, we're having to do some work. You know, it's almost like in the days of stigma in therapy, which again still exists, where people will not admit that they're going to see a therapist, you know, because it means like there's something broken in them, something isn't good. And that's insane, you know, as a mental health practitioner. To me, that's just insane, because actually, when you go to see a therapist, when you go and seek for professional advice and support from people that's their field, that's what they've learned how to do, that shows the strength that you have, be it an individual, be it an organization, to say, you know what, I need some help here. I don't have the tools. I always give this example, like, you know, if my car's broken, well, you know, I can change a battery and I can change a tire, but I don't have all the tools that the mechanic has. So I need to take the car to the garage to fix it. This is no different, right? Leaders don't have all the tools. They can't have all the skills and the knowledge in the world to create high-performing teams. And that's where we come in. We've studied it. We've invested in our training. We have supervision. We have peer support. You name it, you know, continuous professional development. That's what we do. You know, that's our job. Our job is to come and help and support leaders who are courageous enough to say, you know what, I need some help over here. And that's fine. That's great. That's a massive, big first step. So you see, I still ended up talking, even though I said that I have nothing to add. Oh dear.
But no, that's such a good point, right? And it makes total sense. And I'm really excited about this journey ahead. and I'm eager to learn more, not just for myself, but also to be in a position to create some positive impact for organizations with this partnership of ours. As we bring this conversation to a close, I'd love to hear your final reflections, right? For organizations looking to navigate this new era of work, what is the one piece of advice you would give?
Look, I'm not sitting here like a guru to give advice or anything. One thing, I will go back where you started, Aman. One thing is available in abundance is complexity nowadays. And along with that is the opportunity. Every organization will have to evolve, will have to transform, and there will be a lot of value given to team, how you come together as a team, how you solve critical problems and complex issues. Because most of the whatever is the easier ones will get solved automatically, hopefully by machines or others. So most of the things we'll start dealing with, it's much more complex. And we are here, we don't have all the answers, but we are here to work together with our clients to help them through that journey.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Indranil. And actually, and I want to say again, we've been kind of put as experts. It's not a term I ever use, because that means that I don't have capacity to learn new things, and I always do. I'd love to think that I always will. Well into my old age. So rather than leave this question with answers, I actually want to leave with a questions for leaders who are listening to this podcast. And thank you for staying with us throughout this lively conversation. And the question I would like to pose to the leaders listening to that final question is, have a moment to reflect. What are the things that are working well? And what are the things that are not working well in your organization right now? What are the things that you're noticing that might benefit from changing? And with that in mind, what would be the benefits to keep things the same as they are? And what is the cost for the organization and the individuals within it to keep things as they are? And just have a think about what makes sense to you as you reflect on that. Because one of the things that I do want to leave this podcast with is that quote from Henry Ford, which I'm sure you all know. And that is, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Yael and Indranil, for your time, for sharing the valuable insights and very wise words.